What's the real difference between an IELTS speaking score of 7 and a 9?
Let me tell you, it's not about having a perfect British accent. It's not about using gigantic, complicated words. More often than not, the difference is a series of small, almost invisible mistakes that even really advanced speakers make.
Exactly. These are the words and phrases you think sound impressive, but to an examiner, they can just sound unnatural, memorized, and inflexible. So many candidates with excellent English get stuck at a band 7, and they never quite figure out why.
They have the grammar, they have the vocabulary, but they're accidentally using what you call toxic vocabulary, words that are secretly poisoning their score.
That's right. These are the subtle giveaways that tell an examiner you might be delivering a script instead of having a real conversation. Relying on those memorized answers is a trap that keeps you from showing off what you can really do with the English language.
Now, this isn't about making you paranoid. It's about pulling back the curtain on how the IELTS speaking test is actually graded. That test is designed to feel like a natural, real-life conversation. Examiners are pros who can spot rehearsed speech in seconds.
And this guide is here to show you exactly where those traps are. We're going to break down the specific words and phrases holding you back and give you the fluent, natural alternatives that high-scoring candidates use.
By the end of this, you'll understand how to sound authentic, flexible, and confident, the 3 pillars of a Band 9 performance. The first major pitfall is just misunderstanding the tone of the speaking test. It's not a university lecture, but it's also not a super casual chat with your best friend. It's a formal conversation that requires what you might call educated English.
A lot of students trying to sound academic and smart pull language straight from their IELTS writing practice into their speaking, and that's where things go wrong. Spoken English is just different. It has shorter sentences and more personal language than formal writing.
This brings us to pitfall 1, the essay linkers. This is probably the most common trap of all. In your IELTS writing task 2, you're trained to structure your arguments with formal linking words. Words like furthermore, moreover, in addition, in conclusion, and to sum up are your best friends on paper.
But in the speaking test, they can be your worst enemy. So why are they a problem?
Using these words in a conversation is an immediate sign that you're thinking in an essay format. It can sound incredibly stiff, unnatural, and rehearsed. While maybe you could get away with one in a very serious Part 3 discussion, peppering your speech with them just makes you sound robotic.
The official IELTS band descriptors for fluency and coherence even point out that a Band 5 candidate may overuse certain connectives and discourse markers. So using them too much can actively drag your score down by making you sound less fluent, not more.
Let's look at an example. The examiner asks, what are the advantages of living in a big city? A weaker response might be, living in a big city has many advantages. Firstly, there are more job opportunities. Moreover, the public transit is very convenient. In addition, there are many entertainment facilities.
It just sounds like a list. Grammatically, it's fine, but it's not a conversation. It doesn't have that natural flow the examiner is listening for. Okay, let's try that again with more conversational, natural linkers.
A stronger response would be, well, for me, the biggest plus is probably the career opportunities. You just have a much wider range of jobs to choose from. And on top of that, getting around is usually a lot easier because the public transit is so much better than in smaller towns. Another thing is that there's just always something to do, like concerts or new restaurants to try.
See the difference? The language is simpler, but it's so much more fluid.
So here are your fluent alternatives. Instead of firstly, secondly, thirdly, try, well, the first thing that comes to mind is, I guess the main reason is, another point to consider is, and I suppose you also have to think about.
And instead of furthermore or moreover, try things like, and on top of that. Another thing is, plus, also, what's more.
Finally, instead of in conclusion or to sum up, try things like so all in all, or so I guess when you look at everything, or so yeah, basically, or at the end of the day.
The goal isn't to ditch transition words. It's about using the ones real people use in educated speech. You want to connect your ideas smoothly, not announce the structure of your answer like you're reading a teleprompter.
The next pitfall is what I call the thesaurus syndrome. This is when a candidate thinks a higher vocabulary score comes from using the longest, most complex word they can find for any simple idea.
But your lexical resource score isn't about difficulty. It's about precision, appropriateness, and how naturally you use the word. Using a fancy word in the wrong context is way more damaging than using a simple word correctly. Accuracy beats complexity every time.
Let's talk about pitfall 2, vague and unnatural nouns. A lot of students are told to avoid the word people and use more advanced words like individuals or citizens. This is usually misguided advice.
So why is it a problem, John? In 90% of cases, people is the best and most natural word. Individuals can sound really clinical and formal, like you're writing a science report. Saying some individuals like to go to the park just sounds weird. Some people like to go to the park is perfectly natural.
And citizens is even more specific, right? It refers to the legal members of a country, so it's usually for discussions about rights or laws. If you say, the citizens in my city enjoy shopping, it sounds bizarre unless you're specifically comparing them to non-citizens.
Exactly. Using citizens incorrectly is a huge red flag that you've memorized a synonym without understanding its meaning.
So here are your fluent alternatives. Seriously, most of the time, just use people. It's natural and it's correct. For young people, you can say young people, teenagers, or young adults.
And to really show off your vocabulary, get specific. Describe the group. Office workers, commuters, shoppers, local residents. This demonstrates much better vocabulary than just swapping people for individuals.
Let's look at an example. The question is, how has technology changed the way people communicate? A weaker response would be, technology has greatly impacted how individuals communicate. For instance, many citizens now use social media to interact with their friends and family.
Using individuals and citizens there is awkward and just wrong. A stronger response is, oh, it's changed completely. I think for most people, especially younger generations, texting and social media have pretty much replaced phone calls. For example, my friends and I are in a group chat where we talk all day, which is something my parents' generation never did.
That answer is so much more specific, natural, and uses vocabulary that actually fits the topic.
Now for pitfall 3, the merits and demerits mistake. When asked about pros and cons, so many candidates reach for the phrase merits and demerits.
And why is this a problem, John?
The word demerit is extremely rare and old-fashioned in modern spoken English. Hearing it in a conversation is jarring. While merit is a fine word, it's more formal and less common in speech than other options. Using the pair merits and demerits instantly makes you sound like you've memorized a phrase from a dusty old textbook.
Here are the fluent alternatives you should use instead. Pros and cons. This is the most common and natural-sounding choice for a conversation. Advantages and disadvantages. Also great and a little more formal, which is perfect for part 3. The upsides and downsides. A fantastic, slightly more idiomatic way to say the same thing.
Or you could just describe them without a label, like, well, the good thing is, but on the flip side, let's try it. Question: what are the pros and cons of online shopping?
A weaker response would be, there are several merits and demerits to online shopping. One merit is convenience. However, a demerit is that you cannot see the product before buying.
A much stronger response is, that's a good question. I think the biggest advantage is obviously the convenience. You can buy anything without leaving your house. But the main downside for me is that you can't actually touch or try on what you're buying. So you're always taking a bit of a risk with quality and size.
That answer just flows better and uses words that are perfect for a real conversation.
Examiners don't have a list of banned phrases. What they do have is deep training to spot the natural and flexible use of language. When a candidate shoehorns in a clunky rehearsed phrase that doesn't quite fit, it's a major red flag.
It tells the examiner the answer might be memorized. A common tactic they might use here is to ask an unexpected follow-up question to see if you can adapt, or if you just crash because you're off script. Your ability to be flexible is a key skill they're testing.
This brings us to pitfall 4. Cliché idioms. A lot of students learn a list of banned 9 idioms and try to force them into the conversation. You know the ones. Every coin has 2 sides, it's raining cats and dogs, or think outside the box.
So what's the problem with them?
The issue isn't that these idioms are wrong, they're real expressions. The problem is they're so overused by IELTS candidates that they've become test cliches. When an examiner hears, well, every coin has 2 sides, they don't think, wow, great vocabulary. They think, okay, here's a memorized phrase for pros and cons. It sounds forced and inauthentic.
The secret to using idioms well is to use them sparingly and only when they fit the context perfectly, just like a native speaker would. If it feels like you're jamming it into the sentence, it's better to just leave it out.
So here are your fluent alternatives. Instead of every coin has 2 sides, try, well, there are a couple of ways of looking at this. There are definitely both positives and negatives here. It's a bit of a double-edged sword, really. This is another idiom, but it's less of a test cliché.
And instead of forcing in, it's raining cats and dogs, just describe it naturally. It was absolutely pouring down, or the rain was really heavy. This shows great use of collocations and adverbs, which is honestly more impressive. Remember, using collocations, words that just naturally go together, like heavy rain, is a much more reliable way to show off a strong vocabulary.
Now for pitfall 5. Overly complex opening phrases. This is one of the easiest ways to signal a memorized answer. It usually sounds something like this. That is a very interesting and thought-provoking question that I have never considered before. However, if I were to venture an opinion, I would say that... And why is this so bad? Because nobody talks like this. Seriously, it's a long, time-wasting filler that just screams, I memorized this sentence to start my answer. It adds zero meaning and actually hurts your fluency score because it's not a spontaneous, natural part of the conversation.
If you need a second to think, that's completely normal, but you should use natural hesitation devices. Here are some great fluent alternatives for buying time. That's an interesting question. Let me think about that for a second. Oh, that's a tough one. I haven't really given that much thought before, but I guess, well, off the top of my head...
These phrases do the exact same thing and give you a few seconds to organize your thoughts, but they do it in a way that is totally natural and conversational. It makes you sound like you're genuinely thinking, which is exactly what you should be doing. If you're finding this advice helpful and you're starting to see how these small shifts can make a massive difference in your score, make sure you hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. I post detailed guides just like this one every single week to help you smash through those plateaus.
And hey, let us know in the comments which of these pitfall words you might have been using. There's no shame at all. Recognizing it is the first step to fixing it, and we're all here to learn and get better together.
Moving on, let's talk about fluency. Fluency isn't just speaking without stopping. It's about the rhythm, the flow, and how your ideas connect. Some candidates, in their mission to avoid silence, actually develop habits that make them sound less fluent and coherent.
This brings us to pitfall 6, empty fillers versus meaningful hesitation. There's a huge difference between a bad pause and a good pause. A bad pause is just dead silence or a lot of empty fillers like and This tells the examiner that you're struggling to find the words or ideas.
A good pause, on the other hand, is filled with what we can call meaningful hesitation markers. These are the little words and phrases that show you're thinking, processing, and structuring your answer. This is what natural, spontaneous speech sounds like. Some examples are, well, actually, you know, I mean, how should I put this? Let's see.
These make you sound engaged and thoughtful. It sounds like you're actively building your answer, which is the mark of a truly fluent speaker. Next is pitfall 7, parroting the question. This is an incredibly common habit, especially in part 1. The examiner asks a question, and the candidate starts their answer by repeating it word for word.
For example, the examiner asks, why is it important for people to learn about the history of their country? And the candidate says, it is important for people to learn about the history of their country because... Why is this a problem? First, it's repetitive and sounds robotic. In a real conversation, you'd almost never repeat a question back to the person who just asked it. Second, it's a massive wasted opportunity. You're using up valuable speaking time without showing any of your own language ability.
Exactly. You're not paraphrasing. You're not showing flexibility. You're just copying. Here are some fluent alternatives. First, you can paraphrase the topic. I think understanding a nation's past is crucial for a couple of reasons.
You can also start with a direct response or opinion. Absolutely. I believe it's vital because, or, well, for me, the main reason is that it gives us a sense of identity.
Or use a framing phrase. When it comes to learning about history, I think the most important thing is...
Let's look at another before and after. Question. Do you think that advertisements have a positive or negative effect on society? The weaker parroting response is, I think that advertisements have a negative effect on society because they make people feel dissatisfied with their lives.
A much stronger response would be, I'd say their impact is largely negative, to be honest. The main problem is that they're constantly creating this sense of dissatisfaction, making people feel like they need to buy more stuff to be happy.
That response is more direct, more dynamic, and immediately starts showing off the candidate's own vocabulary and sentence structure.
The final set of traps has to do with a big misunderstanding of what the examiner actually wants. They're not looking for a single factually correct or perfect answer. They're language assessors. They're evaluating your ability to use English to express and develop your ideas, whatever those ideas are.
And that's why they use the flexibility test. Like we mentioned, if an examiner thinks you're using memorized answers, they might deliberately push you off script. For example, they might ask, and did anything go wrong on that trip? This is designed to test if you can think on your feet.
Someone who memorized their speech will often fall apart here, while a genuinely fluent speaker can handle the change of direction naturally. So don't panic. Just see it as a chance to show you can handle a real conversation.
Also, don't overcorrect yourself. Minor grammatical slips are normal part of speaking. The problem happens when you get so paranoid about being perfect that you constantly stop and interrupt your own flow to correct minor errors.
For example, yesterday I went to the cinema with my friends. While self-correction can be good for a major error, constantly stopping for minor things will absolutely destroy your fluency score. It breaks the rhythm and makes you sound unconfident. Unless the mistake is a big one, it's usually better to just keep going.
Finally, let's talk about the power of specific personal examples. One of the biggest differences between a weak answer and the strong one is the use of examples. Vague, general statements don't do much. A weak example is, for example, technology is very useful for old people.
That's so generic. A stronger, more developed example would be, a great example is my own grandmother, actually. She's almost 85, and for years she felt quite isolated. But last year we got her a simple tablet, and now she video calls the family every day. It's completely transformed her social life and made her feel so much more connected to everyone.
This second example is so much more powerful. It's personal, it's detailed, and it naturally uses a wider range of vocabulary and grammar. It brings your answer to life.
Exactly. It moves you from just making a statement to telling a story, which is a much higher level communication skill.
So let's bring this all together. The journey from a band 7 to a band 8 or 9 in IELTS speaking isn't about cramming more complex words into your head. It's about refinement. It's about letting go of the unnatural, robotic habits you might have picked up.
The core message is this: prioritize clear communication over forced complexity. Today, we've broken down some of the most common and damaging pitfalls.
Using formal essay linkers like moreover in a chat, leaning on unnatural words like individuals or demerits, dropping in cliché idioms that just sound memorized, using long, rehearsed opening phrases that waste time, and parroting the examiner's question instead of paraphrasing.
Avoiding these traps will instantly make you sound more natural and confident. The examiner wants to have a real conversation with you, not listen to a pre-written speech. They are trained to tell the difference. Be genuine, be flexible, and focus on getting your ideas across clearly. That is the real secret to a high band score.
For more deep dive strategies on mastering every part of the IELTS test, don't forget to subscribe for new practical guides every single week.
Thank you so much for watching, and good luck with your preparation. You've got this.